You wake up, and within minutes, the conversation starts. Not with anyone else, with yourself. And if you're honest, really honest, most of what you're saying isn't kind. It's not empowering. It's not even neutral. It's critical. It's doubtful. It's a replay of every failure, every insecurity, every reason why today might not go the way you want it to. You tell yourself you're not ready. You tell yourself you're not good enough. You tell yourself that other people have it figured out, but you're still struggling. And here's what most people don't realize: those words aren't just thoughts passing through your mind. They're instructions. They're programming. Every single thing you say to yourself, consciously or unconsciously, is shaping who you become. Your brain doesn't differentiate between a thought that's true and a thought that's repeated. It just accepts what you feed it and builds your reality around it. So if you're spending your days telling yourself stories of limitation, of fear, of inadequacy, then that's the life you're going to create, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you've been reinforcing the wrong narrative. The good news, the thing that changes everything, is that this process works in reverse. If negative self-talk can program you for doubt and limitation, then intentional, empowering self-talk can program you for confidence and growth. It's not magic. It's not wishful thinking. It's neuroscience. It's psychology. It's the understanding that your mind is constantly listening to you, and it will believe whatever you tell it consistently enough. Most people leave this process to chance. They let their self-talk run on autopilot, shaped by past experiences, by criticism they internalized years ago, by fear and doubt that was never theirs to begin with. But you don't have to do that. You can take control of the conversation. You can decide deliberately what you're going to tell yourself every single day. And when you do that, when you make it a practice, something shifts, not overnight, but steadily, powerfully, undeniably. That's what we're going to explore. Not just the idea that self-talk matters, but exactly what to say, why it works, and how to make it a natural part of who you are. Let's start with something fundamental. Your identity, the person you believe yourself to be, is not fixed. It's not something you were born with and can never change. Your identity is a story you've been telling yourself for so long that it feels like truth. And that story is built, word by word, through the things you say to yourself every day. Think about it. When you tell yourself you're not a morning person, you're not just making an observation. You're reinforcing an identity. You're giving your brain a label to organize your behavior around. And once that label is in place, your brain looks for evidence to confirm it. You struggle to wake up early, and instead of seeing it as a habit you can change, you see it as proof of who you are. The same thing happens with confidence, with discipline, with creativity, with resilience. If you tell yourself you're someone who gives up when things get hard, your brain will find ways to make that true. If you tell yourself you're not good with people, you'll act in ways that confirm that belief. But here's the part that most people miss. This process is always happening. You're always telling yourself something. The question is whether you're doing it intentionally or letting it happen by default. Most people let it happen by default. They inherited their self-talk from parents, teachers, peers, society. They internalize messages that were never meant for them, and now they're running programs that don't serve them. But when you become aware of this, when you realize that you have a choice in what you say to yourself, everything changes. You stop being a passive recipient of your own thoughts, and you start becoming the author of your own narrative. The science behind this is clearer than most people realize. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, means that your brain is constantly being shaped by your experiences, your behaviors, and yes, your thoughts. Every time you repeat a thought, you're strengthening the neural pathway associated with that thought. Do it enough times and that pathway becomes a highway. It becomes automatic. It becomes who you are without even trying. This is why people who constantly tell themselves they're anxious become more anxious over time. It's why people who repeatedly say they're unlucky seem to experience more bad luck. not because the universe is conspiring against them, but because they're training their brain to focus on evidence that confirms their belief. They're literally wiring themselves for that outcome. But the reverse is also true. When you consistently tell yourself empowering statements, when you feed your mind with words of confidence and capability, you're building new neural pathways. You're creating new automatic responses. At first, it feels forced. It feels like you're lying to yourself. That's because you're contradicting the old programming. You're going against years of conditioning. But if you stick with it, if you repeat these statements daily, something remarkable happens. The new programming starts to take hold. The empowering thoughts start to feel more natural than the limiting ones. And your behavior begins to align with this new identity. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. Cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the most effective forms of psychological treatment, is built on the premise that changing your thoughts changes your feelings and behaviors. Affirmations, when done correctly, are a form of cognitive restructuring. They're not about pretending problems don't exist or ignoring reality. They're about choosing which aspect of reality you're going to focus on and reinforce. Because reality is complex. You can find evidence for almost any belief if you look for it. If you believe you're capable, you'll notice the times you succeeded. If you believe you're incompetent, you'll notice the times you failed. Both perspectives have data to support them. The difference is which one you're actively reinforcing through your self-talk. This is why two people can go through the same experience and come out with completely different stories about what it means. One person loses a job and tells themselves they're a failure, that they'll never succeed, that this is proof they're not good enough. Another person loses the same job and tells themselves it's a redirection, an opportunity to find something better, a chance to grow, same event. Different self-talk, different outcome. Your subconscious mind is listening to every word you say to yourself. And unlike your conscious mind, which can be critical and analytical, your subconscious simply accepts what it's told. It doesn't question, it doesn't judge. It just absorbs and acts accordingly. This is why affirmations work even when you don't fully believe them at first. You're not trying to convince your conscious mind, which might resist. You're programming your subconscious mind, which will accept the input and start organizing your perception and behavior around it. But here's the critical piece. It has to be consistent. Saying something empowering once doesn't override years of negative conditioning. You have to repeat it daily, multiple times a day if possible, until it becomes the dominant narrative, until your subconscious believes it more than it believes the old story. This is not about blind positivity. This is about intentional conditioning. It's about recognizing that you're going to talk to yourself anyway. So you might as well make it constructive. You might as well use it to build yourself up rather than tear yourself down. Let me tell you about someone I'll call David. David struggled with confidence his entire adult life. He was competent at his job, had good relationships, wasn't failing by any external measure. But internally, he was constantly second-guessing himself, constantly comparing himself to others, constantly telling himself he wasn't smart enough, wasn't capable enough, wasn't deserving of the success he had. This inner dialogue was exhausting. It created anxiety. It held him back from opportunities because he didn't think he could handle them. One day, after a particularly difficult week where his self-doubt nearly cost him a promotion, someone suggested he try changing his self-talk. Not his circumstances, not his abilities, just the words he was saying to himself every day. David was skeptical. It sounded too simple, too superficial, but he was desperate enough to try. So he started telling himself every morning that he was capable, that he was exactly where he needed to be, that he had value to offer. At first, it felt ridiculous. His mind immediately countered with all the reasons those statements weren't true. But he kept going, every morning. Same statements. For weeks, nothing seemed to change. He still felt the doubt. He still heard the critical voice. But he noticed something subtle. When he was in meetings, when he had to make decisions, there was a split second where he heard his own voice saying he was capable before the doubt kicked in. It was brief, but it was there. He kept up the practice. Months went in, and slowly that split second became longer. The empowering voice became louder. The doubt didn't disappear completely, but it lost its grip. He started taking on projects he would have avoided before. He started speaking up in situations where he would have stayed silent. He started trusting himself. And here's what's important: his actual skills didn't change dramatically. What changed was his belief about those skills. What changed was the narrative he was running in his mind. And that change in narrative led to a change in behavior, which led to different results, which reinforced the new narrative. Within a year, David had been promoted twice. Not because he suddenly became smarter or more talented, but because he stopped undermining himself with his own thoughts. He stopped telling himself he couldn't. He started telling himself he could. And his brain, his subconscious, his entire system responded accordingly. Consider another person, a woman I'll call Sonia. Sonia had a different challenge. She wasn't struggling with confidence in the traditional sense. She was struggling with consistency. She would start projects with enthusiasm and abandon them within weeks. She would commit to habits and break them within days. She wanted to change, wanted to grow, but she couldn't seem to follow through. And every time she quit something, she reinforced the story that she was someone who didn't finish things. That story became part of her identity. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. When someone introduced her to the concept of daily self-talk, specifically around discipline and follow-through, she was intrigued but doubtful. Could just telling herself she was disciplined actually make her disciplined? It seemed too easy. But she decided to test it. Every day, first thing in the morning, she told herself she was someone who followed through. She was someone who kept commitments, especially to herself. She was someone who finished what she started. And then, critically, she looked for small opportunities to prove it. Not massive projects, small things. Finishing a book she started. Doing a workout she planned. Completing a work task she'd been avoiding. Each time she followed through on something small, she reinforced the new narrative. She told herself, see, you are someone who finishes things. You did what you said you would do. And gradually the identity shifted. She started seeing herself differently. Not as someone who always quit, but as someone who was learning to follow through. The self-talk created the mindset. The mindset created the behavior. The behavior created the evidence. And the evidence reinforced the self-talk. It became a positive loop instead of a negative one. Within 6 months, Sonia had completed 3 projects she would have abandoned in the past. She had maintained a daily routine she never thought she could stick to. And more importantly, she believed in herself in a way she never had before. Not because someone else validated her, but because she validated herself consistently every single day. These stories aren't outliers. They're the norm when people commit to intentional self-talk. Because here's the truth. You're already using affirmations. You just don't call them that. Every time you tell yourself you can't do something, that's an affirmation. Every time you tell yourself you're not good enough, that's an affirmation. You're affirming limitation. You're affirming doubt. You're affirming fear. And your brain is listening. It's absorbing those affirmations and building your reality around them. So the question isn't whether to use affirmations. The question is which affirmations you're going to use. Are you going to continue affirming limitation, or are you going to start affirming possibility? There are certain statements, certain phrases, that when repeated consistently, have the power to reshape your entire mindset. They're not random. They're not generic platitudes. They're carefully constructed to address the core beliefs that either limit or empower you. Let me walk you through these statements, not just what they are, but why they matter and how to internalize them so they become part of who you are. The first statement is simple but foundational. I am capable of handling whatever comes my way today. This isn't about pretending you're invincible. It's about reminding yourself that you've handled difficult things before, and you can do it again. Your brain needs this reminder because it has a negativity bias. It's wired to focus on threats and worst-case scenarios. When you tell yourself you're capable, you're counteracting that bias. You're shifting your focus from what could go wrong to your ability to respond. Say this every morning. Let it set the tone for your day. And watch how your response to challenges changes when you're starting from a place of capability instead of fear. The second statement, I am worthy of success and happiness. This one confronts a belief that more people struggle with than admit. Deep down, many people don't believe they deserve good things. Maybe they were taught that success requires suffering. Maybe they internalized criticism that made them feel unworthy. Whatever the source, this belief sabotages everything. Because if you don't believe you deserve success, you'll unconsciously undermine your efforts to achieve it. Telling yourself daily that you're worthy doesn't make you arrogant. It corrects a fundamental misunderstanding about your value. You don't have to earn worthiness. You have it by virtue of being human. This statement helps your subconscious accept that truth. The third statement, my past does not define my future. This is critical for anyone carrying regret, shame, or disappointment about previous choices. Your brain wants to use the past as a predictor of the future. It's efficient that way, but it's also limiting. If you made mistakes before, your brain assumes you'll make them again. If you failed before, your brain expects you to fail again. This statement breaks that pattern. It reminds you that every day is a new opportunity to choose differently. It separates who you were from who you're becoming. Repeat this especially when you find yourself dwelling on past failures. Let it create space for new possibilities. The fourth statement, I choose to focus on what I can control. This is about mental discipline. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy worrying about things outside their control, other people's opinions, economic conditions, past events, future uncertainties. That energy is wasted. It creates stress without producing results. When you tell yourself daily that you're choosing to focus on what you can control, you're training your mind to direct its energy productively. You're building the habit of discernment. You're teaching yourself to ask, can I influence this? If yes, take action. If no, let it go. This statement makes that process automatic. The fifth statement, I am growing and improving every single day. Growth isn't always visible. Most days, you won't feel dramatically different than you did yesterday. But growth is cumulative. Small improvements compound over time. This statement keeps you oriented toward progress rather than perfection. It reminds you that you don't have to be the finished product today. You just have to be better than you were yesterday. And when you tell yourself this consistently, you start looking for opportunities to grow. You start seeing challenges as chances to improve rather than threats to avoid. Your entire orientation shifts from fixed to developmental. The sixth statement, I trust myself to make good decisions. Decision fatigue is real. The more decisions you have to make, the harder each one becomes. But decision fatigue is amplified when you don't trust yourself. When you second guess every choice. When you ruminate about whether you're doing the right thing. This statement builds decision confidence. It doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes. It means you trust yourself to handle the consequences of your choices and learn from them. Tell yourself this before making important decisions. Let it quiet the noise of doubt and allow your intuition to guide you. The seventh statement, I release what no longer serves me. This applies to thoughts, habits, relationships, beliefs. Most people are carrying weight they don't need. They're holding on to grudges. They're maintaining habits that drain them. They're believing things about themselves that aren't true. This statement is permission to let go. It's a daily practice of release. When you say this, follow it up by identifying something specific you're ready to release. Maybe it's a limiting belief. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Maybe it's a habit that's keeping you stuck. Name it, release it, move forward lighter. The eighth statement, I am in charge of how I feel. This one challenges a common misconception that your emotions are caused by external events. Someone cuts you off in traffic and you get angry. You think the traffic situation caused your anger, but it didn't. Your interpretation of the situation caused your anger. Your thought about what it means caused your anger. This is empowering because it means you have control. Not over what happens to you, but over how you respond to it. Tell yourself daily that you're in charge of how you feel. Practice catching yourself when you blame external circumstances for your emotional state. Reclaim your power over your inner experience. The 9th statement, I am exactly where I need to be right now. This addresses the constant feeling that you should be further along, that you're behind, that you're not where you're supposed to be. That feeling creates anxiety and prevents you from being present. When you tell yourself you're exactly where you need to be, you're not giving up on growth. You're accepting your current position as the necessary starting point for your next step. You're releasing the resistance that comes from fighting reality. And paradoxically, when you stop fighting where you are, you start moving forward more effectively. The 10th statement, my potential is limitless. Your brain loves limits. It loves categorizing and defining. It wants to know exactly what you're capable of, so it doesn't waste energy attempting impossible things. But in doing this, it often sets limits that are far below your actual potential. This statement challenges those artificial limits. It opens up possibility. It reminds you that you don't know what you're truly capable of until you push beyond what you think is possible. Say this when you're facing something that scares you. Let it expand your sense of what's achievable. The 11th statement, I attract positive energy and opportunities. This isn't mystical. It's about attention and perception. When you tell yourself you attract positive things, you start noticing them. You become more aware of opportunities that were always there, but you were filtering out. You start showing up in ways that invite positive interactions. Your energy shifts and people respond to that shift. This statement primes your brain to look for and recognize the good, which makes you more likely to experience it. The 12th statement, I am confident in my abilities. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through repeated action and through the stories you tell yourself about those actions. This statement builds confidence directly. Every time you say it, you're reinforcing the neural pathway associated with self-assurance. And the more you reinforce it, the more naturally confident you become. Don't wait to feel confident before you say this. Say this until you feel confident. That's how the process works. The 13th statement, I face challenges with courage and resilience. Challenges will come. That's not optional. What's optional is how you approach them. This statement programs you to meet difficulties from a place of strength rather than fear. It reminds you that resilience is a choice. That courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. Say this especially on hard days. Let it anchor you when things feel overwhelming. Let it remind you that you've been resilient before and you can be resilient again. The 14th statement, I am grateful for everything I have and everything I'm becoming. Gratitude rewires the brain. It shifts focus from scarcity to abundance, from what's missing to what's present. This statement combines present appreciation with future orientation. You're grateful for where you are and for where you're going. This dual focus creates contentment without complacency. It allows you to be happy now while still striving for more. Practice this statement with specificity. Don't just say you're grateful. Identify specific things. Let the feeling of gratitude fill you as you say the words. The 15th statement, I deserve respect, love, and kindness from myself and others. This sets a standard for how you allow yourself to be treated. Many people tolerate disrespect because somewhere deep down they believe they deserve it. This statement corrects that belief. It establishes boundaries. It reminds you that your well-being matters, that you don't have to earn basic human dignity. Say this especially when you're tempted to accept less than you deserve. Let it guide your choices about who you spend time with and how you allow them to treat you. The 16th statement, I learn and grow from every experience. This reframes failure. Instead of seeing mistakes as evidence of inadequacy, you see them as data. Every experience, good or bad, becomes an opportunity for growth. This statement removes the sting from failure because failure is no longer a judgment about your worth. It's just information. Tell yourself this after setbacks. Let it shift your perspective from shame to curiosity. Let it help you extract the lesson and move forward wiser. The 17th statement, I am calm, centered, and in control. This is particularly powerful in moments of stress or chaos. Your external environment might be turbulent, but your internal state doesn't have to be. When you tell yourself you're calm and centered, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. You send signals to your body that it's safe to relax. This isn't denial of stress. It's mastery over your response to stress. Use this statement before difficult conversations, during overwhelming moments, whenever you need to ground yourself. The 18th statement, I take responsibility for my life and my choices. Responsibility is power. When you take responsibility, you acknowledge that you have agency, that your life is not just happening to you, that you're an active participant in creating your reality. This statement prevents victim mentality. It keeps you in the driver's seat. It reminds you that even when you can't control what happens, you can always control your response. Say this when you're tempted to blame circumstances or other people. Let it redirect your energy toward action. The 19th statement, I am patient with myself and my progress. Growth takes time. You're not going to transform overnight. There will be setbacks. There will be days when you feel like you're not making progress. This statement gives you permission to be human. It releases the pressure of unrealistic expectations. It reminds you that patience is part of the process. That being hard on yourself doesn't speed things up. It just makes the journey more miserable. Tell yourself this on difficult days. Let it soften your self-criticism. The 20th statement, I am becoming the person I am meant to be. This is forward-looking. It acknowledges that you're not finished, that you're in process, that who you are today is not the final version. This statement creates space for evolution. It removes the pressure to have it all figured out right now. It gives you permission to be a work in progress while still moving in the right direction. And your daily practice with this statement. Let it set the intention for continuous growth and self-discovery. These 20 statements are not just words. They're tools for mental conditioning. They're the foundation of a mindset that supports success, confidence, and personal mastery. But here's the critical part, they only work if you use them. You can read them once and forget them. Or you can integrate them into your daily routine until they become automatic, until they're the first thing your mind reaches for instead of doubt and criticism. Until they're the lens through which you see yourself and your potential. There comes a moment in this process that most people don't anticipate. It's the moment when you realize you're no longer consciously choosing the empowering thoughts. They're just there. They've become your default. You face a challenge, and before fear can take hold, you hear your own voice telling you that you're capable. You make a mistake, and before shame can spiral, you remind yourself that you learn from every experience. You're not forcing it anymore. You're not fighting your own mind. The new programming has taken root. The empowering self-talk has become who you are. This is the turning point. This is when daily practice becomes permanent transformation. And it happens quietly. You don't wake up one day and suddenly feel completely different. You just notice over time that you're responding differently, that you're showing up differently, that the inner critic has been replaced by an inner coach. And that shift, that subtle but profound shift, changes everything about how you move through the world. So here's what I want you to understand. The words you speak to yourself are not neutral. They're not meaningless. They're not just thoughts floating through your consciousness. They're instructions. They're programming. They're the blueprint your brain uses to construct your reality. Every single day, you have thousands of opportunities to reinforce either limitation or possibility, to build yourself up or tear yourself down, to condition yourself for confidence or for doubt. Most people leave this to chance. They let their self-talk run on autopilot, shaped by old programming that was installed without their permission. But you don't have to do that. You can take control of the narrative. You can decide intentionally and deliberately what you're going to tell yourself. Not just once, not just when you feel motivated. Every single day, multiple times a day, until the new narrative becomes stronger than the old one. Until empowering self-talk is your natural language instead of criticism and doubt. This is not about pretending problems don't exist. It's not about toxic positivity or denying reality. It's about choosing which aspect of reality you're going to focus on and amplify. Because reality is complex. You can find evidence for almost any belief. If you look for reasons why you can't succeed, you'll find them. If you look for evidence of your capability, you'll find that too. The question is, which search are you conducting in your mind every day? Which narrative are you reinforcing? Which version of yourself are you programming into existence? The answer to that question will determine the trajectory of your life more than any external circumstance ever could. Your mind is listening to you right now. It's absorbing these words. It's deciding whether to believe them. And what you do in the hours and days after this moment will either reinforce the old programming or begin building the new. You can go back to letting your self-talk happen by default. You can return to the familiar patterns of doubt and criticism. Or you can make a different choice. You can commit to speaking to yourself with intention, with kindness, with power. You can use these 20 statements or create your own, but use them. Make them part of your morning routine. Say them before important moments. Repeat them when doubt creeps in. Write them down. Record them. Internalize them until they're not just words you're saying, but truths you believe. Understand that this practice is not a quick fix. It's not a hack. It's a discipline. It's something you commit to for the long term, knowing that the results are cumulative. The first day won't feel transformative. The first week might not show visible changes. But if you stay consistent, if you make this a non-negotiable part of your daily life, you will begin to notice shifts, small at first, a moment of confidence where there used to be doubt, a decision made quickly instead of agonized over, a challenge met with curiosity instead of fear. These small shifts accumulate. They build momentum. And before you realize it, you're operating from a completely different mindset. You're showing up as a different version of yourself, not because circumstances changed, not because someone else validated you, but because you consistently, deliberately, powerfully chose to speak life into yourself instead of limitation. The person you are today was shaped by the words you've been telling yourself for years. The person you become tomorrow will be shaped by the words you start telling yourself today. That's the power you have. That's the choice in front of you. You can continue running the old program and wondering why nothing changes. Or you can begin the work of reprogramming your mind, one statement at a time, one day at a time, until the empowering voice is louder than the critical one. Until possibility feels more real than limitation. Until confidence is your default state instead of something you have to work up to. This is how transformation happens. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through consistent, intentional, daily practice of speaking to yourself in ways that build you up instead of tear you down. The words are waiting. The practice is simple. The only question is whether you're willing to commit to it. Whether you're willing to show up for yourself every single day and remind yourself of who you truly are and who you're capable of becoming. Because you are capable. You are worthy. You are enough. Not because I'm telling you, but because it's true. And the moment you start telling yourself that truth consistently and without reservation is the moment everything begins to change.